I'd offer you one of these cherry tomatoes, but you got a hole in your neck.
He's so silly. I love this ghoul character. It's got me excited for that one Fallout video now that I'm thinking about it. 5,000 words? I'ma kill this guy, I swear to God. Who's yapping in here, eh? Why are you looking at me like that? Say something. The game was rigged from the start. What are you talking behind you?
Morphine administered.
Hey, so where are we taking this, Bremen guy? Topside. For burying. Okay, now, gas mask and I will take. Well, I'ma just take this really quickly. Have fun, bye-bye. Okay, let's see here. Well, this guy can't write for shit. I'll just improvise. A lot of narrative-driven games like to emphasize the use of themes within their stories. A theme in storytelling, for those of you unfamiliar, is basically the central core of the story that everything is built on. Characters, plot, you name it. Most of the time, a theme serves as an underlying message that the audience and players can learn from or even get inspired by. While many themes were tackled in games, some being phenomenally well done even, the theme that I felt spoke to me on a personal level the most was in Fallout New Vegas. Because Fallout New Vegas is a game about letting go. The message that the narrative designers chose to tackle of letting go, learning and moving on in life is something that I assume all of us have experienced and maybe even struggled with many times in our lives, which consequently results in the stories of New Vegas being really easy to empathize and sometimes even sympathize with because you get it, you've seen and been in actual situations around it and you understand how it can be difficult sometimes to let go. Many of the characters and factions you come across in the world of Fallout New Vegas in some way possess and carry that theme within their stories, all in different ways. The NCR is a faction that refuses to leave the old pre-war ways in which the United States government was ran by. Plutocracy, imperialism, all that jazz. Even though it can be argued that those methods are some of the core reasons that led to the Great War and total nuclear annihilation. This point is kinda sorta irrelevant now, sadly, since the show hinted strongly that it's the capitalistic corporations that started the war, so I guess NCR good guys now? Hey, what are you doing here, eh? Caesar's legion follows the ways of the totalitarian dictatorship Caesar, whom fixates on, you probably guessed it by his name, the Roman Empire. They not only wear gear similar to them and speaketh the tongue,
Away. True to Cesar.
English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
but they follow their ideologies and beliefs and apply it to their way of life. Even, actually, let me correct myself there, the harsher, more savage ways that they utilize that of total war, dividing and conquering. The reasoning behind all of it is that survival is the one and only thing that matters, and apparently the only way to survive is to establish an enslaving misogynistic dictatorship that flexes its military strength like it's casual, and also forcefully unites everyone under its flag. Caesar clings to this old idea because he believes that the Roman Empire lasted for a very long time, so they must have done something right. You dumbass. After their defeat at Helios 1, the player finds the Brotherhood of Steel as a shell of its former self, struggling in an internal war against their roots and core foundations that they were set on. Their entire mission revolves around either setting new leadership that would move the Brotherhood forward by adapting to the new world, or sticking to their old ways of isolation. Veronica, one of the companions that you finds herself in the same conflict. Her quest focuses on the struggle between either taking a risk by following her ambition of doing something meaningful with her skills and knowledge, or staying with the people that she grew up with and calls family, continuing to live an isolated life.
There's something that still rings true to me about our code. There's an honor to it. We're protecting people, even if it's from themselves. It's a good cause. We just lose sight of the big picture sometimes.
And goddamn does this game throw some tough choices at you in regards to its themes. I remember that Veronica quest had me thinking for like 10 minutes straight on which choice I had to pick. Just running around Hidden Valley for 10 minutes like, oh shit, what should I pick? Because again, the message is something that is very grounded that the player cannot help but care. You might say, well, obviously in this situation, letting go is better, you dingus. True. But then she's never allowed inside the bunker anymore. Not to mention a couple of Brotherhood members who are against the idea of a member leaving. They just decide to up and wipe out an entire outpost, which is the same outpost that was supposed to take her in. So letting go also has consequences. I haven't touched on Mr.House yet, because the guy who paces the scripts got shot, and so I'll just do it right here. Mr.House can only see the future. To him, the past, the bombs falling, is but a derailment. He only sees opportunities to go forward. He has plans, he has goals, he has ambition. Which is why a lot of people from the Fallout New Vegas community argue that he's the right choice for the future of the Mojave, because the other choices are either stuck in the past or are making the same mistakes as the past.
Give me 20 years and I'll reignite the high technology development sectors. 50 years and I'll have people in orbit. 100 years and my colony ships will be heading for the stars to search for planets unpolluted by the wrath and folly of a bygone generation.
This, of course, comes at the cost of putting a narcissist who has some questionable ideas and doesn't care about anyone but himself to rule. But, you know, it's New Vegas. Nobody's perfect, Just forget about it. Another companion that I think showcases this theme with huge emphasis is Raul.
What can I do for you, boss?
I love Raul. His story sounds like it was taken straight out of a Western novel. One which feels like it was written by a collab between McCarthy and Mura. It's fucking brutal and depressing. I'm surprised this guy's still standing because holy shit, the things he went through. He literally witnessed the absolute worst in humanity. And I mean it. Witnessed the entire world destroy itself with nuclear bombs. His family was burnt to death right in front of his eyes, along with the place he grew up in. His innocent younger sister, the only survivor of his family after the fire, was brutally mutilated by raiders. He tells you the single sole reason he recognized the body was because of a tiny mark on her knee that she had gotten when she was a child. And take this, listen to this. It was the single moment he got too sick to protect her. He blames himself and his fame as a gunslinger for his sister's fate, leaves his old life behind and gets a new name because of that, turns into a ghoul with very weak knees. And you would think that's enough suffering for one character. You would think that. No. The writers of New Vegas say, not enough sorrow. Fucking destroy the man. Kill his hope. So he finds someone that resembles his sister, decides to protect her from a distance for obvious reasons, and she too gets brutally murdered. Can someone mod the Helldivers hug in the game, please? Anyone? Because my man needs one. The player finds him as a lonely soul, avoiding his past and personality like they're the plague.
The winner of the worst life in history goes to Raul! Okay, lad, tell us, how do you feel? Looks like he's not much of a speaker. What a guy, am I right?
But you know, while all of the trauma has clearly affected him immensely in all the bad ways, understandably of course, what's so interesting about Raul is that he didn't choose the easy way out. Instead, he persevered. And if you build your relationship up with him and complete his mission, he comes back from all of that. If that's not inspiration embodied as a character, I don't know what is. At first you stumble on these characters that seem like they're normal NPCs, but then the more you get to know them and their struggles, the more you care. Especially because, again, the theme that's implemented really complements how you engage with them. Some of their stories, like Raul's, are genuinely inspiring. But if all the stories so far weren't enough letting go for you, there's still an entire game filled with it. And trust me, they're all as well written as the ones that I described. I just happened to pick my favorites. And in the case, you silly you, the base game wasn't enough for you, the theme is even kept intact in the DLCs. Dead Money specifically is 100% unfiltered letting go. The game throws subtlety out the window with this one. It even starts with a narrator outright saying, entering the place, it's not the hard part, it's letting go. Okay, now, how does it exactly play into the theme? Well, I'm glad you asked. Greed is the keyword here. Dead Money tells the story of the Sierra Madre Casino. The Sierra Madre was made with the intention of whoever visiting it to leave their old life behind and begin again. See, deep inside its vault is a treasure that would make anyone's dreams come true. However, under the promised utopia, its true intentions that nobody knew was to build a place able to withstand a nuclear holocaust in case there ever was one. Don't worry guys, I'm sure nothing will. Now this place is silly. A little silly. It is what I can only describe as the unluckiest place on earth. And it's funny because it's a casino, luck involved in all that. Anyways, why do I say it's the unluckiest place on earth? Those of you who have played it are probably putting their legs on top of each other now. This is gonna be good. Okay, so for starters, the materials used in constructing the place were described by the workers as sand held by spit and glue. Great start. Additionally, the Big MT, you know them as the guys responsible for abominations such as cazadors, were given the green light to experiment on the place in exchange for their supply of technology. The Red Cloud and creepy immortal ghost people, murderous holograms, all of that's their doing. They first started with their infamous toxic plant experiment. This experiment created a giant red smoke that would burn your lungs and skin if you were to breathe it. Although, fortunately, this was noticed. After some of the vents started spewing out red smoke, the workers took it up with Sinclair, and so he contacted the Big MT. Guys, not cool. Solution, please. Still not getting the message that this is the Big MT. Naturally, they fixed the problem by doubling down on it. They gave the workers these hard-to-remove prototype hazmat suits that the Cloud could easily get through. To make matters worse, they're also not fully anti-radiation. To make matters even worse, the red smoke would rust the zippers, making it impossible to get out from the suits. Amazing. Also, the casino had multiple extreme, and I mean extreme, security measures, such as the invulnerable laser shooting holograms that I mentioned earlier, and a giant metal barricade built around the entire resort in order to disrupt any radio frequencies coming from outside. So let's say a silly were to happen and you would get stuck here due to some unforeseen consequences. Damn. Furthermore, Sinclair built the casino for a woman he loved dearly. I mentioned earlier that the casino was built to withstand a nuclear apocalypse. Now, let's change that sentence to protect a singer named Vera and live out the rest of his days with her in safety once the apocalypse arrives. Very romantic. Little did he know that the singer he loved was being blackmailed by a man he despises into heisting the casino once it's built. When Sinclair found out, he didn't take that so lightly. He started tweaking, turning the entire resort and casino into a death trap. And you know what's the cherry on top? A comically big cherry. The casino's opening night was set on October 23rd, 2077. Security system goes bazinga, traps everyone inside. Holograms start opening fire inside the casino. Outside, workers were trapped inside their suits. Bad materials played their part. No maintenance led to the Cloud spreading and getting worse. They couldn't contact anyone because of the radio barricade. They couldn't even speak because I didn't mention your voice would be muffled inside that thing. People running around, they turned into unhinged immortal ghost people, and nobody was able to get out. Safe to say, it got out of control. If I had a cap for every time someone would attempt to build an independent utopia with an Art Deco architecture only for it to fumble into complete chaos, I would have 2 caps. So anyways, where does the letting go and greed play in all of that? Okay, this old man, Father Elijah, he got his ass kicked by the NCR and got the Brotherhood to be the way they are because of him. He straps a bomb collar to your neck and forces you to act out a heist to get the treasure inside the casino. He wants it. You, along with 3 other characters unlucky enough to suffer the same fate, are supposed to participate in the opening of the Sierra Madre Casino. Luckily for you, your partners are the best you could ever hope for. There's Dog, or God. He's a split personality mutant. He ate the collar. There's Christine. She's not so bad, but she can't speak. Not very good when you're supposed to work together. And then there's this guy. We don't say his name. Don't provoke him at all. Just leave him alone. He will either explode on you or leave you digging. And that's if he likes you. And Dean Domino, the silver-tongued, sneaky little sarcastic scumbag that you've been seeing on posters the entire game. He's the blackmailer, by the way.
Don't get up or make any sudden motions, no matter how uncomfortable that chair gets. The cushion's just for show. Get up without my permission. I'll blast your ass so far for your head, it'll turn...
All of these companions are, as it is apparent, connected to the theme at hand. Dog, or God, is at conflict with his two personalities. One of them wants freedom and the other wants to obey their master. You help them by emerging their identity into one using therapy. Christine wants revenge on Elijah after he messed up the Brotherhood, and also because he threw her to the big empty. Pretty self-explanatory. You have to help her let go of those urges and move on. And Dean still has an eye for that treasure even after 200 years. My god, people just don't let go. Given no other choice, you plan out the heist and execute it. Once inside, you make your way through the casino, inside the vault, and it is around here where Father Elijah's plans with the casino are revealed. He doesn't want the treasure of the Sierra Madre. Rather, he wants to use its technologies as a weapon to use against the NCR after they kicked his crusty old ass. He also wants to take over the Mojave, so, you know, there's that. Now, normally, in another game you would defeat the bad guy, save everyone, and get away with a handsome reward. But not here. Remember, this is a game about letting go. And remember again, this DLC wants to hammer that point. So you make your way inside the casino, and there is your reward. A sight like no other. 37 gold bars, each costing 10.5k caps. That is almost 400,000 caps. But they're too heavy to carry, and the casino's basement is collapsing. You've helped all the characters in moving on, but here is where the game is telling you that it's your turn now. 400,000 caps is a lot of money, but if you wanna live, you have to let go of your greed. Now, this was supposed to be the part where I say it's such a brilliant theme built into the game, I've never seen anything like it, it's so good. It's really how you deliver a theme connected through gameplay, yo, it's so good, all of that. And while all of these things, I believe, are still relevant and true, the player base just couldn't let go, ironically. They did more than that, they prevailed. See, the game is giving you a choice here of either killing Father Elijah or, by sneaking around him, trapping him inside the vault with his greed. A great ending which I prefer to killing him because it coincides with the theme and all that. Someone online found an exploit that allows you to grab the 37 gold bars, sneak slowly around this thing, trap Father Elijah and get away one over-encumbered step at a time, outplaying the entire point the ending was trying to make. And the community loved it. So much so, they made a meme out of it that still goes on to this day. No, not this meme, but this one's a classic, it's crazy. One of the memes says, and I quote, "You can let go of these fat nuts, I'm getting this gold." Lovely. This was soon followed by another exploit which I think is equally hilarious, in which you choose to kill Elijah, put the gold inside his body, drag his body to the door, and make your way quickly out of the Sierra Madre. Now, I admittedly did the exploit on my first time around with the DLC, but the game just really doesn't want you to have them. Because even if you do the exploit without the fast travel while over encumbered perk, you have to mundanely move to the gun runners and trade them in slowly, 2 or 3 at a time. Nothing is as expensive as they are and they break the economy of the game, so on subsequent playthrough I just never grabbed them ever again out of convenience. Also, it's just that I don't like to exploit my ways through games, I just care too much about getting the right experience, you feel me? The world of this game is connected incredibly well with its theme. All these characters are struggling in different ways with this idea, and it's consistently used and woven into every storyline in such a neat way. Like, it's genuinely hard to pull off a theme, especially when you're doing it in an open world RPG where the player has just complete freedom in what they do. And this is why I appreciate it so much, because it's been nailed somehow. But in between all the stories and characters that I discussed so far in relation to the game's theme, there's one that I particularly find very interesting that I basically just saved as the best for last. So let's talk about the legend of the burned man, Joshua Graham. Joshua Graham is a new Canaanite, a group of people essentially known for 3 things: preaching, surviving, and shooting. On top of possessing all 3, Joshua had a knack for interpreting dialects and languages, a skill that led him to an opportunity with the followers of the apocalypse. He was supposed to accompany 2 people on an expedition, acting as an interpreter, simply to help them learn more about the tribes living in the canyons, their dialects and languages, while at the same time spreading education to those tribes. Emphasis on the word supposed to. The first tribe they ran into were the Blackfoot. This tribe was found to be on the losing side of an ongoing conflict with other nearby tribes. And despite the danger, our 3 characters chose to go forward with doing their job by studying the tribe, their dialects, behavior, and teaching them what they didn't know, and it was going well. However, during one interaction, a misunderstanding had happened between both parties. This misunderstanding then led to our characters getting imprisoned by the Blackfoot, which had happened presumably due to a misinterpretation on Joshua's part. This was a problem, obviously, for two of our characters. But the third guy, Edward Sallow, one of the two men accompanying Graham, saw this as an opportunity. At first, he offered to train the tribe in the art of war. Training became leading in battle. Leading became ruling, and because of what Sallow did, the Blackfoot managed to come out on top. Mind you, all of this happened because Joshua was translating between the two. Now, what was supposed to be a harmless expedition for educational purposes, and in the grand scheme of things, an unimportant conflict between the tribes, turned into the formation of the Legion under Caesar's rule. During this period, Joshua Graham became a force to be reckoned with. Everyone feared him. Enemies, allies, even degenerates who weren't on a cross yet. He was especially feared by those. Up to that point, he had never seen defeat. He led the Legion to victory after victory, each one making the Legion only bigger and stronger. But all of that changed when he faced the NCR. Cesar, hungry for power, wanted to conquer all. No exceptions. Once again, Joshua Graham was tasked with leading the Legion into war. But this time, the NCR had two things the Legion's previous enemies didn't. They had the numbers and strategy. During the first battle of Hoover Dam, the NCR had set up an ambush in the form of an explosive rigged city as a last-ditch effort to push the Legion back. After luring many of the legionaries into the city, they detonated all of their traps, sacrificing many of their troops, but at the same time killing much of the Legion's troops. Joshua, unable to sustain a fight, had to accept defeat and retreat to the other side of the dam. Accepting defeat, however, Caesar did not. He sought to make an example of those who fail him, even his right-hand man, who had never failed him before. And so he ordered his men to set Graham on fire and throw him down the Grand Canyon. Joshua Graham survived. He was betrayed, abandoned, his skin molten, bones broken, spirit destroyed. But another perspective for all of this is alive.
I survived because the fire inside burned brighter than the fire around me. I fell down into that dark chasm. The flame burned on and on. The next morning, I woke up and crawled out of the northern edge of the Grand Canyon, that cursed place. It took me 3 months to reach New Canaan.
Now, I want you to put yourself in Joshua's place. You had this identity that you carried with you for a very long time. One day, you failed. And despite your loyalty, your failure was not met kindly. Far from kindly, it was met with such hatred that it got you lit on fire and tossed down the Grand Canyon. But you survived. And despite your people resenting you for what you've become, what you did throughout all those years, the sheer amount of atrocities, when you returned back home, you were forgiven and welcomed with open arms. There is no way you come out of that experience without just some re-evaluation of who you are as a person, and what we like to call character development. And so ever since, Joshua changed from being a man known for his brutality to a firm but caring, disciplined, righteous soul, seeking to help others out. This is how the Burned Man was born. The Burned Man story deals with letting go in a very nuanced and grey way that acts sort of as a contrast to the stories of New Vegas that I talked about earlier. Unlike the rest of the characters that I talked about, Joshua didn't let his hate get the better end of him. He moved on and changed to be a better man despite what he went through. He is, I think, the only character in the game that has undergone a character transformation for the better before the player meets him. Yet, that said, things are not just black and white. And this is what's so interesting. You can still see his brutal past appear here and there once threats to his close ones start emerging. So there's this whole dilemma between, did he actually change to this good-natured legend that some people know him for, or is he the same cruel war chief underneath that was so infamous? The answer is both. And I think this makes him one of the most compelling, well-written characters I've ever seen in just any game. An example of the aforementioned can be seen when and if the player proposes that he might go against him and the people he cares about. He instills horror into your soul at first by threatening you.
Second, if you harm Daniel or any of the sorrows or dead horses, I will find you. Make no mistake. God willing, you will not leave this valley.
But after the threat, he brings up the anti-war message of Fallout and what waging conflict would do to the courier's soul.
Lastly, Waging war against good people is bad for the soul. This may not seem important to you now, but it's the most important thing I've said.
So what he's saying is that if you mess with his people, he would kill you, no hesitation. But at the same time, he's trying to lead you to a different path from the one he took. And I have to say, for someone who heard the people he cares about being threatened, advice to whom vocalize those threats is the last thing you would expect. Many people tend to focus on the first line, of course, because it's just so cool and badass. But I find the following line to be just as good, because you can see that he changed as a character here. You can see the consequences of going against what he said right in front of you. I mean, he's a man wrapped in bandages, top to bottom, living in a world that destroyed itself with nuclear weapons. There is visual credibility to the line, which is amazing. But I'm not gonna lie, he looks cool as fuck. If this is the result of war, hey Cesar, you got any more of that gasoline? At the end of Honest Hearts, it's all up to the player on which choice or path Joshua takes and how his story concludes. Either by moving on and fully making peace with himself and his past, or embracing this image of being the vengeful spirit that the Burned Man is. And to me, the former fits more so than the latter.
While he continued to advocate militant opposition to the enemies of New Canaan, he sometimes showed quarter to those who crossed his family. Eventually, this new spirit would diminish the myth of the Burned Man in distant lands. A small price for the peace it brought to Joshua Graham.
Despite it being a post-apocalyptic game where you could get ambushed by 3 grandmas and then go to this Elvis wannabe who asks you to change his robot's brain for a new one and you get to keep the dog, Fallout New Vegas' way of portraying its central message and theme comes off as surprisingly relatable and grounded. It just has this charm that allows the player to understand and connect with the game's world despite the weird things, because it possesses believable perspectives that the player can relate to and empathize with. I also admire how the game displays that letting go can be a bit of a difficult thing to do despite its simplicity and necessity, with all the choices that the player has to make. Joshua finding peace comes at a cost of sparing Salt Upon Wounds, who is a giant piece of shit. Having Veronica leave the Brotherhood is a no-brainer, but death follows with it, on top of the fact that she actually cares about leaving her close ones. And there is uncertainty over which alternative is better for Raul. It reflects how our world is like. Moving on does not only require time, but also effort on top of it. Effort that you put in order to develop as a person. Effort that is not made from a giant leap, but small improvements that you make that eventually build up. Understanding that you're totally justified in feeling bad, taking the time you need. But eventually, you have to reflect, make peace, and change has to come. Change that will only happen if you act, because you can't let what are now a bunch of memories and bad experiences affect who you are for the rest of your life. And dwelling on them is not gonna hurt anyone but yourself. You owe it to yourself to move on, learn, and be at peace. Again, the same game with the robot dog and the 3 grandmas. All of what I just talked about made me build this new appreciation for the game in my 20s, and it is one of the big reasons why Fallout New Vegas is still one of my personal favorites. And with that said, we've reached the end of the video. I got a bit too philosophical there at the end, but I liked it. I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. The 250 audio files with moving pixels must have been very entertaining, I bet. As I said, video's over, but I'd like to take the time, just like I did at the end of my Red Dead video, to basically give some thoughts and criticism. Doesn't mean that I dislike the show. Overall, it's good, but there are some issues with it as well as the entire franchise. So here we go. Fallout as a franchise, ironically, has a bit of a problem with reusing stuff. And I'd just like to say that I wish the people responsible behind the creative decisions and writing, whether being showrunners or game devs, would change it up a bit in certain areas. Specifically story formulas and factions. What I'm basically saying is that Fallout needs to follow its own message. Got him. We've had 3 iterations of it so far, which I think is more than enough at this point. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it goes as so. First, you begin in a vault, and then a family member disappears in some way. The protagonist journeys into the ways to find them, then they stumble on a town made of junk, they get some information out of that, then the Brotherhood shows up in somewhere here and there. Fast forward a bit, once they do find them, a twist is revealed that shows that the family member is a different person from what we initially thought they were. I was able to predict Lucy's story pretty well because I had experienced the same story structure in the same franchise 2 times before. The Brotherhood of Steel are way too overused and are always given all the glory. In the show, for example, they defeat the NCR at the end. The entirety of Fallout 3 is them being the heroes and good guys. And guess which ending is the fucking coolest one in Fallout 4?
Death is a preferable alternative to communism.
So even though the Brotherhood has been used to death, they're still needed as a prominent figure in the franchise because it's simple. They're iconic. When you think of Fallout, you think of the Brotherhood. Bethesda wants to show the new players the cool popular things of Fallout. The Brotherhood of Steel, Super Mutants, Enclave.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I'm not saying that you should remove the Brotherhood entirely. I understand that they're iconic and cool, and I'm not gonna gatekeep that. When I first entered into Fallout, I thought they were cool as fuck, but after playing many of the games, I'm just suggesting for them to be used in a different way. New Vegas shows that you can make a great Fallout game while literally burying the Brotherhood underground.
Finding out members left and then they
Fallout 1 had a neat little idea to make a town made out of junk. And now it's used in almost every Fallout project. Why? People in Fallout rebuilt. We can see this with many of the towns that I'll be displaying on screen right now. Humanity, believe it or not, doesn't like living in trash with clubs for their whole lives. It was a thing exclusive to that town specifically, an attribute, a characteristic, not a part of the entire world, you see. Also, Bethesda, please, better writing. You're writing very milquetoast. Don't make Fallout so jokey. We like the serious, grounded stuff, as much, if not more, than the humorous stuff. We like how Fallout examines the human condition. Enjoyed the video, consider supporting my channel through liking, sharing, subscribing, all those stuff. If you do this, Joshua Graham will give you 1 Fallout burger. It's so radioactive it made them all green. Yes. Anyways, appreciate everyone watching once again. Nice, that was my phone notification, and bye bye. Also, just to follow the theme of the game, we killed that old man because he got his 15 minutes of fame, and attempting to recreate that was not gonna work. We had to let go, and I guess we did it in a funny way. Do we regret it? No. Yes, maybe. To be honest, it was a very emotional reaction out of us, but what to do? The voices told us, guys. So out with the old and in with the new.